This is John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on April the 17th in the year of our Lord 2026. And you guessed it, I've got some great information for you tonight. Let me jump over here, click Murtech on Rumble, and come over here to my Rumble channel. This is the video we're going over tonight, episode 1890. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it. So let's jump into this. Close out the live chat. Slide down here and click the show more button to expand the description box. Okay, we have information from Dan Bongino, American Center for Law and Justice, McWattersaffect, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do want to give some shout outs here to T Birdman, just started following me. I'm not sure what the difference is when I get a message that says just followed you or just started following my channel. I'm not sure what the difference is. But anyway, L. Coxon just started following my channel. K. Pow just started following my channel. C. Chirol just started following my channel. Joan Taylor 55 just started following my channel. And Donnie Potwin just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel, following me. I hope you're tuned in tonight, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1889 from last night. Debbie BS and Cottonball 31 commented on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS and Cottonball 31 commented on my episode 1889. Piper Girl 1104 commented on my extra 661C. Now, I'm on 672, so that was like 11 days ago that I dropped this video. Anyway, Debbie BS commented on my extra 672B and 672C. So thank you very much, folks, for reposting my video and all your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. Okay, let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. And let's slide up here and see what we got going. Dan Bongino, the Dems Sinister Plot Revealed, episode 2497. All right, let's get into this and see what he's talking about here.
You guys, they're already laughing. Do you have Lucky Trump? Justin, you just throw up Lucky Trump. This is the luckiest guy. I'm telling you, I've never seen Lucky Trump.
Having trouble getting out what he wants to say today.
Direction on the camera. We did that first time. Man. Amazing. Just Lucky Trump. Did you see just before the show went live? Now I got to go the other way. Just before the show starts, the Iranians who, what did we say yesterday, fellas, ladies in the audience? Donald Trump, who never has a plan, right on top. Now he's taking over my show, Lucky Trump. It's the Lucky Trump show, not the Dan Bongino show. So just to be clear, yesterday, because unlike the doomers, the black pillars, the dipshittery class, the media, the DC swamp, and the other imbeciles who are consistently outfoxed by President Trump, they're like, he had no plan. He had no plan for Iran, for the Strait. Remember just 3 weeks ago? He had no plan. And I put out a tweet, oh, there's a plan. I'm sure of it. And people were like, yo, what are you talking about? Amazing. The Iranians are like, the Iranians now, who just 7 days ago said, we are shutting down the Strait, and the media, Jasmine, right? The media was like, yes, the Iranians won. Yes. Our death to America mullah buddies went. The media was so excited. And Trump said, you want to shut down the Strait? Double barrel middle finger to you. I'm shutting down the Strait. You think you're shutting down. And the Iranians were like, damn, what do we do now? Because as I said on yesterday's show, you're constantly ahead of the news cycle here. The Iranian oil tanks can only fill up to a certain amount where you have to start to drain them, or the entire delivery system to the tanks starts to get damaged. Kind of like what happens with our SPRO as well. Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve. It happens on our end too. You have to refill and drain these things and keep the pipelines moving. The Iranians can only have done this for about 2 weeks. We're a week in, and now this morning, and I'm going to get this a little more later, I was going to start the show with something different, but I have to laugh at you idiots in the black pill doomer media swamp grass. You're constantly effed by Donald Trump because you're so freaking stupid. Stop being stupid. He doesn't do everything right. I don't do anything right. Nobody does. But you saying 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, he has no plan, and then he implements a plan, the Iranians fold, he wins, and you're going to be like, the oil is now plummeting dramatically. Crude is down right now, 10.5. It's down 11%, $10. How many times are you going to get your balls kicked into your throat? You don't, listen, guys, ladies, you're not obligated in a representative democracy. There is no stipulation in the Constitution that mandates you like Donald Trump. You don't have to do that. You don't have to vote for him either. This is not a dictatorship. But you do have to stop being stupid once in a while if you want to stop looking like a moron with scrambled eggs all over your face every day. It's amazing how many of you continue to humiliate yourselves. I get it with the left-wing media, but the doomers and the gloomers, Trump, he's an Israeli puppet. Really? He's an Israeli puppet. Strange. Because he cuts this ceasefire with Lebanon, whether you think it's a good or bad idea is irrelevant. And it turns out the Israelis aren't really that happy with it. Here's the way, dipshittery class. Here's the way puppets work. You ever seen a puppet? So you're claiming like the evil Israelis, they're holding the puppet strings. You know the puppet strings, the little crowd, you manipulate the puppets? The puppet master. Trump's at the bottom doing it. It's kind of weird. It's like the puppet at the bottom, its own thing, sending a signal back to the puppet master. It's like, I have no respect for you at all. You've never done anything. You've never gotten off the sidelines. All you do is with your crank in your hand, sit in the front row of the boxing ring. You don't even sit in the front row because you're too freaking stupid to get seats in the front row. You sit in the cheap seats and you boo and throw popcorn and you never do a freaking thing. You never shut up. You just got wrecked again. This wasn't even the beginning of the show. But in case you missed it, do you have that Wall Street Journal article, Justin, about the Strait? I just want to show you what we're talking about. I'm just so fired up about this because it just happened a little bit ago. I told you the Iranians have to sell the oil in 2 weeks or the system's going to collapse. It's been 7 days. The media people who celebrated, the Iranians beat us, they shut down the Strait. Donald Trump says, I'm shutting it down. Now the Iranians are saying, quote, the Strait of Hormuz is open. Oh, shit. It's like we said yesterday. The Iranians really need to sell the oil. Wall Street Journal, oil prices fall. Oil prices fall, after Iran says Straits of Hormuz are open. My gosh. Are you people serious? Can you be or look any dumber every single day as this guy just backhands you? All right. I got a lot more of lucky Trump coming up. These guys just lucky. It's amazing. It's always just luck. It's incredible how I just put this out on Twitter, by the way, if you want to check it out. I will go with the lucky guy who wins. If it's not luck, but even if you believe that, then the unlucky DC swamp losers that consistently lose every day. Why wouldn't you? And it's not even luck. All right, today's show brought to you by one of my favorite products, especially on the weekend.
Okay, I'm going to skip past these commercials. If you'd like to see these commercials, the link to this video is in the description box, so you can go down there and check this out.
Lucky Trump strikes again. Now, I'm going to get back to that. But I have to start the show with something else because it is really critical and important given everything that's going on with that scumbag Eric Swalwell, who is just a horrible person outside of every person's innocent until proven guilty. I do not get into pylons when it comes to criminal allegations. Let the process play out. You know, I have not been on this case from that perspective. However, I need to show you a video clip. And if this doesn't hammer home a point I've been making to you forever, nothing will. And I'm sorry, but we can't be friends. Folks, this is why I do not get into pylons when it comes to things like the Me Too movement or elsewhere, it doesn't even have to involve sexual harassment, any kind of allegation of criminal activity. You as a United States citizen are innocent until proven guilty. I have no problem discussing it, but I'm not going to pile on and assume anything because people are entitled to due process, whether it's Andrew Cuomo, whether it's Eric Swalwell, or your favorite politician. You know why I don't get into this stuff? Because this is what happened to Donald Trump. I want you to watch this clip. Here's a golden rule to live by, and you will never be on the wrong side of this issue when it comes to allegations about this guy did this, or this woman did this, or Brett Kavanaugh did this, or Donald Trump did that. Do not believe all women. Believe good evidence. Do not believe all men. Believe good evidence. I'm going to show you this clip. This is a podcast. This is Brad Palumbo, and he has on a friend of mine, CJ Pearson. And he asked CJ Pearson a question about all of these accusations against Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you a quick story afterwards, because this is the whole thing. Like, accusations are accusations. And yes, people who are famous and who have name recognition are treated differently in this space, not legally, but in the accusation space, because more accusations are made against famous people because more people know them. It is a math problem. I'll explain to you what I mean in a second, but watch this clip first, and you'll see exactly how this faulty logic plays out. Check this out.
There are 27 women that have accused President Trump of various forms of sexual misconduct, CJ. Do you think all 27 of them are lying?
You know, I don't know those women, and I don't know all their stories and all their allegations. But at the end of the day, what I do know is who President Trump is. And President Trump, I think, is a man of character. And I think the American people see him as that, which is why they sent him back to the White House. But what I do find interesting is the timing of these allegations. You know, this was someone that, you know, lived in the limelight, was a very successful person before he even ran for president. But it wasn't until he ran against the establishment, ran on holding them to account, draining the swamp, that all of these people came out of the woodworks to accuse him of these things. The same thing happened to Brett Kavanaugh.
So yes, then you think 27 are lying?
The man of character is the one who cheated on all of his ex-wives?
Again, I don't know these women, and honestly,
Man of character?
it's something you probably shouldn't be weighing on, Destiny. But when it comes to the
I'm not the president of the United States. Do you want to say that we're morally equivalent, me and Donald Trump?
I'm glad that you can hold other people to different standards than you hold yourself.
Folks, this clip I saw
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there because I want to move on and get to some other stuff. But this video will be in my daily news wrap-up tonight, so you can hear the rest of it. But that's right. It's amazing how they hold other people to different standards, especially if they don't like them. Like a lot of people on the left don't like Donald Trump. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and click on, and again, Dan was right at the beginning of this when he talks about, you know, when Donald Trump does something, there's all kind of uproar and rage and all this and that. But then it turns out, oh, yeah, well, what he did was actually the right thing to do. It's freaking amazing. It just continues to happen. You know, Wendy Bell says he's a time traveler. He knows all this stuff's going to happen. Okay, let me jump over here and show you that this video does come from the Dan Bongino Show. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let me jump back here, and Susie Poles 2016 and Debbie BS has chatted with me, so thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate that. Let me slide down here and give you some information here from American Center for Law and Justice, ACLJ. Impeachment whistleblower now faces criminal referral. It's about intercoursing time, I might say, but let's see what this is all about.
Each day we have had something that is, last 3 days, something related to this same main topic. More keeps coming out and more news keeps developing. And the big one today involves a criminal referral.
Tulsi Gabbard has sent a criminal referral to the DOJ. So for those of you that have been asking, will there be accountability? Now she is saying not just the inspector general, but the whistleblower as well.
The DNI sees criminality.
Right.
And look, when you read the report, if the report is accurate, let's assume the report is accurate, it's pretty hard to imagine that there isn't.
Especially within their own transcripts,
right, that's what I'm saying,
inspector general is saying that, one, they went around guardrails, and that the person bringing the whistleblower complaint admitted to lying. All of these things put together, it does appear there is criminal activity. But let's hear from the Director of National Intelligence, Bite 4.
But the bottom line is this. Number one, the whistleblower, so-called whistleblower who came forward, presented no evidence and no firsthand knowledge. This is a person who had heard about a conversation that President Trump had with Zelensky, then went straight to Adam Schiff on the House Intelligence Committee. And this is where they came up with this false narrative. And this so-called whistleblower then went and filed a complaint with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. The other witness, so-called witness to this, is somebody who also had zero firsthand knowledge and presented zero evidence, someone who was also a co-author of the 2017 Russia hoax intelligence community assessment that President Obama had ordered be created in conjunction with John Brennan and James Clapper at the time. Again, no firsthand knowledge or evidence, and someone who said that even after reading the transcript, he didn't really see the issue there until the whistleblower had explained it to him.
And one other thing that has been brought out by Tulsi Gabbard during this is that the House Intelligence Committee would not release these transcripts to the House Judiciary Committee, which pushed forward with the impeachment. So they didn't even have the full set of data to go off of to know these things about the alleged whistleblower, the witnesses, and the inspector general, whose entire process was out of the ordinary.
Yeah, well, there's some questions, and we talked a little about it yesterday, of the sort of blanket immunity that was put out with his pardons by Biden at the end, and if there would be any sort of issue with that, with who he's talking about and who these whistleblowers are, to where the criminality side of it could be a little taken care of.
Well, it all depends on what pardon they received. What was the extent of that pardon?
Some were so vague. It was like any and all.
You could sometimes challenge that. It's like so overly vague for the level of person this likely was, because the reports that John Solomon said, and we have to corroborate that ourselves as attorneys, is that this person was not on the call. And that we know Vindman was on the call, wrote his version of it. Then we know that Adam Schiff wrote his version of it based off that. And then now we have this third person who wasn't on the call at all, but was actually the first person, it looks like, who went to the DOJ. It wasn't exactly Vindman, probably because of his NSC role, though I'm trying to figure out who else would have overheard it if they weren't in that intelligence world.
Well,
and the intelligence world under law, guys, is held to a higher standard than any normal
anyone else
kind of branch of the federal government.
What seemed to start this was the whistleblower coordinating with Adam Schiff, and then going to the Director of National Intelligence's Inspector General's office, which is supposed to be outside the scope of the normal chain of command. They are the independent auditor internally, so to speak, and went and tried to get this urgent review process through to get it to Congress. And by doing that, because they knew they were on a timeline, we knew that they were trying to obstruct the election through this. It was late 2019. And what they did is they get this urgent review process so that they can get it to Congress quicker. And to get that, he had to lie and say, I haven't already talked with members of Congress. So it's abusing the process to try to get it out there, make it seem like a bigger deal. The witnesses they brought in, one, the whistleblower under this allegedly did not hear the phone call firsthand. One of the witnesses told the inspector general, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it until someone said, hey, maybe there's something wrong with it. I went back and listened, like, well, yeah, I could maybe see that. So one of the witnesses wasn't even thinking it was a big deal until they were told to say it's a big deal. And the other one helped write the ICA, Intelligence Community Assessment, which launched the Mueller probe, which made up the Russia collusion hoax and used the Steele dossier and all of that nonsense to perpetrate that hoax on the American people. So what you're seeing in reality, when they call this a conspiracy, and that's the words that were coming out of the Director of National Intelligence office, it does appear that way, that it wasn't like the Russia hoax ever ended. It's the same conspiracy. The conspiracy wasn't Russia hoax. The conspiracy is take down the sitting president of the United States.
And lastly, the Inspector General himself. And this is really such a violation of public trust and the responsibility that we expect all of our inspectors generals to have, in that he didn't conduct a full investigation. He didn't even ask to see the transcript of the phone call between President Trump and Zelensky. And he admitted to Congress that he didn't have he did not have any evidence that he was relying on. He had made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice based on this so-called whistleblower's complaint. Department of Justice came back and said, there's nothing here. This Inspector General then went to Congress anyway and presented to them. All of this coming down to the bottom line of which this was a partisan political attempt, once again, to undermine the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump as President of the United States.
I don't think that it's shocking that this report exists. It's more shocking how flippant they seem to have been about the how sort of honest sometimes they were.
Let's start a criminal investigation, and let's also DOJ, and let's start the impeachment inquiry now.
Yeah,
so
they're saying there's nothing here, and they go, keep going.
That Inspector General, you can tell, then had this agenda and found a way and was pushing it alongside the alleged whistleblower, and was even reaching out to other inspectors general, talking to the State Department, talking to the DOJ's Inspector General, talking to the Pentagon, trying to get them on board, saying, hey, if they block me, because clearly he didn't have really the evidence that he needed, if I get blocked, can you pick it up and run with it? They had a goal in mind. It wasn't just, this is a whistleblower report, which we know very well, because we've had to represent real whistleblowers that went through the legal process, the chain of command, the reporting process, all things that are statutorily set out. Right. They tried to completely implode that process to get an impeachment, a political impeachment. Meanwhile, the real whistleblowers that we have had to represent, their livelihoods taken away, caught in this legal purgatory where they can't go get more work because they're just suspended without pay for years. And finally, with this new administration, we got justice for them. But that's what the Biden administration did to real whistleblowers. Meanwhile, the deep state whistleblowers under that first administration were weaponizing this entire system for a political means to try and get rid of a sitting U.S. president when their first attempt at it, the Russia collusion hoax, failed.
All right. And, this, hopefully there'll be some accountability for this so that maybe this won't happen again when a Democrat gets in office. Hopefully that won't happen again, but I believe it probably will. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice. I'm sharing this channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and folks, let me close out the chat again. M41 Coco joined us. Thank you very much for joining us in the chat. Now, this information is really nothing new, okay? I mean, this has been out for a long time. The difference is, finally, there's some people that have some scruples about them that are in charge of the Department of Justice and in the legal system in Washington, D.C., and it's amazing that it took over a year for this to happen. But this information was out in September. See this I'm down here in the description box. September 30th of 2019. Almost 7 years ago, they knew this. I've got this video here that was reported on Fox News. Here's the article. Trump questions timing of whistleblower complaint rule change. Okay, so there was a rule change by the Department of Justice saying, well, okay, you really don't have to be actual witness it, but if you hear somebody, if you hear a rumor, yeah, we'll act on it. September 30th, 2019.
The president is not alone in his battle with congressional Democrats. GOP lawmakers pushing back hard and taking particular issue with what's being called a recent rule change, giving whistleblowers considerably more influence. Here's Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge.
In letters to the intelligence community watchdog Michael Atkinson, House and Senate Republicans zeroed in on this whistleblower complaint form and what they described as a recent change that appeared to lower the standard to secondhand information. House Republicans asked Atkinson to preserve records documenting the reported change, the timeline, and who apparently signed off. Quote, the timing of the removal of the first-hand information requirement raises questions about potential connections to this whistleblower's complaint. This timing, along with numerous apparent leaks of classified information about the contents of this complaint, also raise questions about potential criminality in the handling of these matters. The president tweeted his criticism, asking, quote, who changed the long-standing whistleblower rules just before submittal of the fake whistleblower report, Drain the Swamp. The Federalist first reported on the forms Friday, and since then other forms and analysis have surfaced that indicate there may not be a new hurdle. Based on the underlying statute, a former prosecutor and Fox News contributor said the preference was always for a direct account, indicating secondhand information might not go very far.
The statute has not been changed. So the statute always allowed secondhand information. But what the statute requires is for the IG to make a determination about credibility and whether something raises what they call an urgent concern under the statute.
U.S. government officials said the intelligence community watchdog has independent authority to administer the program, including changes to the complaint form. Fox News reached out to the ICIG press office, and in the last few minutes, we received this statement that reads in part, quote, the whistleblower submitted the appropriate disclosure of urgent concern form that was in effect as of August 12, 2019, and had been used by the ICIG since May 24, 2018. The whistleblower stated on the form that he or she possessed both firsthand and other information. The key thing that jumps out at me in that statement, Brett, is firsthand, and it's worth going back to look at that complaint that was provided to Congress to see if that syncs up, Brett.
Okay, whatever. Now, see, this is Fox News, and they'll give you the information. But, and this is the same type of stuff that you hear from the mainstream media, a source close to the White House. Okay, what does that mean? Close to the White House? Where they were walking down the sidewalk? Okay. They visited the White House? They've been in the White House before? What do you mean by a source close to the White House gave us this information that is damning against Donald Trump, which turns out to be a freaking lie? And the situation here is they had the transcript. They could see the complaint that the whistleblower had did not match what was on the intercoursing transcript, okay? But yet, they went through with the impeachment because Democrats had control of Congress, okay? Not that that really did anything other than hold Donald Trump up from getting things done that he wanted to get done to make America great again. Yeah, well, the Democrats don't want that. They want us all to be in poverty. They want us all to be dependent on them so that they can have the power and control the money, and we just take this from them, whatever they want to dish out to us. You know, if you're from Somalia, they'll dish out millions to you. But if you're an American citizen, then you can eat garbage, okay? That is the Democrat platform. All right, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Oh, let's jump down here to McWattersaffect. Two-tier justice, DOJ fires prosecutor in major FACE Act fallout. More bullshit from Democrats. Let's see what they got to say.
There's been a lot of motion since Pam Bondi left the Justice Department. Today, they finally released the report on how the FACE Act was weaponized against abortion, anti-abortion advocates or pro-life people. What are we talking about? You had the Biden Justice Department working with anti-abortion groups to target pro-lifers and infringe their free speech. You see a 2-to-1 disparity in sentencing. If you're pro-life, you got twice the sentence requested by the Justice Department that you got if you were a pro-abortion protester who was arrested. That is a very serious disparity. And today, the Justice Department, the Trump Justice Department, got right on that and told the American people the truth.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. And today we're going to be talking about this story that's come out about people that got arrested for abortion during Biden's administration got double the time that people that were pro-abortion that got arrested protesting clinics that try to help pregnant women.
We're going to dig into it for you. We would very much appreciate if you'd subscribe, like, and share. It's free, it doesn't cost a penny, and it gives a huge boost to the channel.
Of Justice releasing a bombshell report on the weaponization of government. It claims the Biden Justice Department, led by former Attorney General Merrick Garland, weaponized the law to target pro-life defendants and tried to give them longer prison sentences. And that includes the case of pro-life activist Mark Houck. The father of 7 was charged with obstructing access to an abortion clinic. A SWAT team of more than a dozen people raided his home, arresting him in front of his children. He faced up to 11 years in prison. A jury later acquitted him. You'll remember we covered this story, and here he is on America's Newsroom after that.
Look, I'm a pro-lifer, and I've been a pro-lifer. I've been an activist for 20 plus years, and we all know what happened. But the federal government did come after me with the full force of the law and raided my home on September 23rd as a response to that, and. Here we are 4 months after that raid, vindicated, hopefully, with no issue with appeal.
We remember that well. Well, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is with us here. Thank you so much for being here.
Morning.
I think what we're seeing here is another example of lawfare that we saw during the Biden administration. They went after Trump. They went after anyone that would question elections or that try to help Trump when it comes to finding out what happened to elections. Perfect example is Tina Peters. She got 9 years in prison, and someone like P. Diddy, who did something awful, that should have gotten, I think, at least 2 decades in prison, only got 4 years. That's the kind of justice we're seeing at that time period, just like we saw they were trying to do to this guy by putting him in jail for at least a decade.
Yeah, and everyone knows that wouldn't be justice at all. If what we're really seeking is justice, well, it doesn't resemble what they've been doing. When you want to put Catholics on a list of domestic terrorists, that the last administration did that. And then this example here, it's not just. And I'm glad the Trump administration is changing it and telling us the truth.
Put a couple of statistics here. Average 26.8 months for pro-life defendants versus 12.3 months for pro-abortion offenders. And this from...
That's triple the time. Almost triple the time. It's at least double the time. We could tell that. But, man, it's well on its way. I think if you would have had another Democrat, it would have became triple the time.
I can't disagree with you at all. The numbers are so out of whack that you can know one other thing as well. It was done intentionally.
The other thing you can know is they're adding charges. If I had to guess, they're probably putting the KK Act on them in order to make them do more time.
Yeah.
A Biden official, former Biden official, saying the Civil Rights Division brought law enforcement leaders, crisis pregnancy center representatives, faith leaders, and reproductive health care staff together to address the real violence, threats of violence, and obstruction that too many people face in our country when it comes to reproductive health care. We enforce the law even-handedly and put public safety at the center of this work. I imagine you disagree with that.
I do, and I disagree not because it's just my opinion. I disagree because of the work that we did over the past year at the department, understanding what happened that led to these completely inappropriate results. And prosecutors have a big say in sentencings in the federal system. The judge ultimately imposes sentence, but what...
I'm glad they investigated this and everything, but what took you so long to actually fire these people that did this? I think this is an example of what we're seeing in the DOJ and the FBI. They haven't fired enough people and replaced them. If you look at what happened to DNI when Tulsi Gabbard got in there, first thing she did was fire 40% of her staff. Why? Because she knew at least 40% of them were involved in nonsense that was going after Trump. And the thing is, you could calculate the same thing with the DOJ and the FBI pretty easily and look into it and find out pretty quickly who was involved in this kind of stuff and who wasn't and get rid of them, because the fact is they're political hacks. They're not actually investigators or someone that's looking for justice.
Right. The people who would do this sort of thing are, you know, to make a comparison, you know, those guys in World War II who all said we were just following orders. They're the same mentality. These people, there is no stopgap.
We saw is prosecutors arguing for really harsh sentences, inconsistent with what they should have been doing, and inconsistent with what they were arguing when it was exactly the opposite. And we saw internal emails, internal correspondence, which is now part of the report, where Department of Justice prosecutors are working hand in hand with NGOs and nonprofits to target and go after pro-life individuals who were not breaking the law. Okay, and I'll tell you what, there's no emails in my inbox from NGOs telling me what to do.
That's the thing that really frightens me here, frankly, is that there was a calculated, coordinated approach to go after very specific individuals and to hand out stiff prison sentences because they didn't believe the right way. And they wanted to communicate a message to the rest of us. If you get out of line, you know, we're going to hit you with the same type of not justice at all.
Yeah, to try and make an example of them. Kind of like what they did with Peter Peters when it came to elections. Yeah. It's very similar to that. And the thing is, right now, they're trying to correct that, and she's going to be getting resentencing. But when it comes to this stuff, you got to ask yourself, what's going to happen if we get another Democrat president? Are we going to go back to this kind of stuff where justice is going to be implemented wrongly or not evenly handed? I think we will. And the thing is, at some point or another, these people need to be put in jail. And I'm hoping some of these people that did this, they will actually be prosecuted. We'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of faith in Todd Blanche. I'll just be honest with you guys. Most of you know, I don't think much of the DOJ or Todd Blanche or Pam Bondi, who used to be there. And I kind of think like they're just going to get away with it, and they just lost their job. They'll go and get another job, or they'll just get another job in a Democrat administration, which is going to be sad to me. But we'll see what happens. We're going to be following this story. We really appreciate you guys checking out the video and checking us out. Please hit that like button, comment.
All right, there you have it, folks. Let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from McWattersaffect. I am sharing his information. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, jumping back here, let me slide down and see what Wendy Bell has to say. Cleaning house. Yes, let's clean the house. And granted, there were a lot of people fired, but there's still some deep state hacks in there gumming up the works. We got to filter those out, and we certainly can't lose this midterm election and have the Democrats get in power, because they will. They'll impeach him again, you know, gum things up, because that's what they're good at, okay? That's what they know how to do, is gum shit up, you know, and stop progress from being made, something that's good for Americans. You know, they'll open the borders again if in 28, but they'll gum up the works here in 26 if they get control of the House of Representatives, so that Donald Trump can't move as quickly as he needs to actually make America great again. All right, let's see what Wendy Bell has to say.
You know, one of the cool things about radio, about talk radio in general, is I get a lot of time to try to massage through, work through subjects, sometimes better than others. And I get to do this with you. And some of the things we talk about, many of you have far greater knowledge than I. Some of the things I bring up, I'm sure it's a first timer for you. You don't know what's going on, and you hear something and you're like, wherever you are on your knowledge spectrum, wherever you are in your enlightenment and awakening journey, pay close attention to the media and the desperation that they really are showing and trying to convince you what the real story that you should be thinking about is. Everything that the media pile on to talk about, almost assuredly, is not the thing that you and I should be focused on. We could examine, for example, one small little tidbit called Jeffrey Epstein, right? President Trump said, I don't know why we're wasting our time on this. The guy is dead. The victims have not wanted to come forward. If they had, we would have already been through all of this. What you're trying to do is attach me somehow to a human trafficker, to a child rapist, and you're not going to find a link. So you should probably move along. And they browbeat that story like the pinata that it was, except no more Tootsie Rolls were in it, right? For how many years? Why isn't he ever talking about Thomas? Why was that guy the ultimate hot potato? How is it that a 20-year-old kid from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, which, Brock, how far away is that? 10 minutes from where we're broadcasting here in Pittsburgh?
Probably about 15.
15 minutes away from where Brock and I are sitting right now. A young man named Thomas Crooks, who kind of flew under the radar. Nobody paid attention to him, of course, until he made bomb threats against his school, which might have been sort of a red flag. I don't know. I'm not in law enforcement. But he was just kind of a nerd, I think. He was teased for perhaps not smelling the best. Maybe he wasn't the finest with his hygiene. He was extraordinarily smart. He got a perfect score on the ACT and a 1540 out of 1600 on the SAT. The guy was extraordinarily bright. What was he doing? Working as a nursing home aide while going to the range and shooting his father's AR-15, AK-47, whatever it was. Well, what was it about that guy? What was it about him in general? Why him? A registered Republican, but a young man who had given a donation, though small, to a progressive party. Why would he do that? How many of you know of 18 to 20-year-olds who give monetary donations to political parties or people? Like, what was that? Why was it that CNN streamed that July 13th, 2024 rally at the Butler Farm Complex in Pennsylvania, where I was with my husband? Why did CNN go that day? It was the hottest day, like we were sitting on the surface of the sun. There wasn't a whisper of wind. This location had very few places for people to hide from direct sunlight, very limited shade, no wind, temperatures out of control, humidity up. Why is it that CNN decided that day, that rally, when they had ignored all of President Trump's others? Why is that? Why was Thomas Crooks featured in a BlackRock commercial when he was in high school? Why was his home professionally scrubbed with no utensils in it? Why were there no utensils? Why was the head of the Secret Service such a ridiculous clown about why agents hadn't spotted this kid who everybody on the ground did? He walked in with a rifle over his shoulder. He rode a bike, parked the bike, crawled up a building, and laid on his belly to get position, and had previously searched for the distance between the gun and JFK's head on his computer. Nobody was flagged. Why was it that Crooks had no footprint on the internet, despite having 5 cell phones? Why did he have IEDs in his trunk? Why did the Secret Service know he was there 30 minutes before the event, saw him walk in, and cleared him to walk in with a rangefinder? And everybody was like, well, it makes sense to me. I don't know. When I go to a Trump rally, I usually, bring a bottle of water? And maybe something like that has a flag on it? He brought a rangefinder, and they're like, oh, go on through. I'm sure it's nothing. He's probably just chipping in the back. But what? Why were there reports that there was a phone that traveled multiple times from the FBI field offices in Washington, D.C. to Thomas Crooks' home? Why? Why? And why has the media completely dropped it? Why did he all of a sudden have such ire for President Trump? He hadn't posted anything about that. He didn't leave any manifesto. There were no accomplices. He had no clear ideology. He acted alone. And literally, if you try to look for anything about Thomas Crooks, his Wikipedia page is negligible. And there's really been no conclusion to the investigation, which of course cost Secret Service Chief Kim Cheadle her job when she alleged that the slope was too slopey over on the building that Thomas Crooks was on, even though the Secret Service and had their snipers on a roof that was much more so. It made no freaking sense. Beyond that, if you went, and I was there was a dearth of security. Anybody could have walked in. Anybody could have not even crawled across a fence. They could have just literally walked into the environment where President Trump, who was ostensibly going to be the next president of the United States, was going to be speaking to a crowd of Pennsylvanians. Why? Everything about it sucked. Everything about how they handled it sucked. Everything about the curiosity of the media, which was zero. Where's the 60 Minutes investigation? Where are the citizen journalists doing deep dives into his footprint? Where's all of the NCIS stuff that you and I watched or did back in the day? Because none of it happened in this case when a 20-year-old kid tried to take out the president of the United States. And beyond that, was anybody else kind of curious about why they decided to hose off the rooftop so fast? And what happened to his body when they Lahaina crematorium style fire burned it? Why? Where are the interviews with his parents? Did you know he had a sister and her name is Catherine? I didn't. Why? You've got 60 Minutes who'll travel around the world to do a story about something negative for this president, but they're not even remotely interested in the young man who quizzically decided one day just to take his rifle and go try to kill the leader-to-be of the free world. And we're all supposed to just be like, yeah, that was really weird. Oh, well, you want to go get a margarita? Makes no sense. What I believe is unraveling, and this is the thread that's being pulled, much like Eric Swalwell was the first little thread being pulled. It's going to unravel a whole tapestry of sexual deviance, drug abuse, human trafficking, and God knows what else among sitting members of Congress. So too is this entire deep state plot to not only destroy the United States of America, the one that you and I love, the one that how many of our friends and family members have died to protect for how many years? This deep state wanted to completely sink it and take down Donald Trump. That's coming out. So I have to ask you, seeing as how despondent Rosie O'Donnell was yesterday, that she had been conned by the alleged rapist, Eric Swalwell, conned by his charm and his cute little fatherly family guy, fake persona. How do you feel she's going to react when everything blows up and her favorite heroes are the ones who've been trying to destroy America? I don't know. Anyway, something I was chewing on, thought I would share it with you.
Alrighty then.
Right? When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, Harry Enton, he's trying to worm his way back into my heart. He was a boyfriend, and then I broke up with him because it was ridiculous. But he's back. He's talking about older voters. How do they feel about this president? Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Alrighty. Well, let's get this up here and see what Harry has to say. Here we go. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. You know, before we get into Harry Enton, who is telling us something that is very bad for the Democrats, if you believe polls, and you may, well, you may not, I want to tell you this. President Trump says the Strait of Hormuz is open. Guys, it's been 10 days. 10 days. President Trump, under budget and ahead of schedule. There you go. I don't know about the budget part because I'm sure I'm sure this offensive against Iran is going to cost a pretty penny, but it had to be done. Strait is open. Let's read what the president put out on Truth this morning. He says the Strait of Hormuz is completely open and ready for business and full passage, but the naval blockade will remain in full force and effect as it pertains to Iran only until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. The process should go very quickly in that most of the points are already negotiated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. After that, moments later, he says, now that the Hormuz Strait situation is over, I received a call from NATO asking if we would need any help. I told them to stay away unless they just want to load up their ships with oil. They were useless when needed. A paper tiger. So he's obviously, I think he's going to yank us. It's going to take a year for us to get out of NATO, but he's going to do it, I think. And then beyond that, he says that Iran has negotiated. They have agreed to all of the points in his plan, and that he, perhaps as soon as this weekend, is going to go and help perhaps negotiate the finality of this. But the big sticking point was Lebanon and Israel agreeing to some truce, some sit down, the first face-to-face between the two countries in something like 37 years. And the first time they together have been hosted at the White House, and I think that's happening today, in over half of a century. So this is going to be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. We'll see what ends up happening. Now out to Harry Enton. He says, look, polls tell us that Trump's approval is only 38%. However, if you look at how the GOP, when asked, how do you feel as a Republican about Donald Trump's job? The number goes to 88%. So there's a lot of disparity in the middle. Democrats don't like him at all. But you know who does? Apparently, one of the most important voter blocks, because they happen to be the most dedicated at showing up. Senior citizens. Here's Harry.
Because President Trump is more than holding his own amongst a very large portion of the electorate, a very reliable voting bloc, and that is senior citizens. Take a look here, okay? Trump's approval rating age 65 plus. In March of 2025, 46%. Look at where it is now. It's basically the same. Seniors have not moved. He's at 44% now. And the key nugget here is, for all this talk about young people in the electorate, such as myself, or at least I like to include myself in that block, it turns out that older voters, senior citizens, vote in far larger numbers. So Republicans look at this number and they say, hey, you know what? We can actually potentially do some real damage, or at least hold our own in the midterms, because President Trump is holding his own with this very important voting bloc.
So how does that number 44% compare historically to other presidents?
Okay, this is where it gets even more interesting. It turns out if you look at all the 21st century second-term presidents and you look at senior citizens, Trump actually has the best approval rating at this point in the second term of all of them. Donald Trump at 44%. Obama was under 40% at 39%. George W. Bush was way down there at 34%. So Donald Trump is beating other presidents this century at this point in their second term, beating all of them. And therefore, as I said, holding his own amongst a very key voting bloc. The President of the United States and the White House should like this number, especially compared to Obama, who Trump, of course, always likes to beat.
And if you talk about the midterms, as you know, the party in power typically loses the House. And so John Berman says, what are you seeing is voter preferences in this block of voters over the age of 65? Listen.
Oftentimes I ask myself, okay, you know, the president isn't obviously up for election this November, but Republicans in the House are. And so I think just making this comparison, right, you know, we've seen a lot of folks saying, oh, Republicans doomed when it comes to the midterm elections. But just take a look at this. Choice for election among age 65 plus. Back in November of 2024, Trump won that group by 1 point. We've seen some movement, but really not that much movement. Democrats ahead by 3 in the race for Congress. And as John and I were talking about, this could cost Republicans the House. But a number like this suggests to me that Republicans very, very well and are likely to hold the Senate. This is what we've seen in the polling data. When we look nationally, we see that the movement, simply put, isn't there. And when you get the most reliable voting bloc, basically Republicans holding their own with maybe some slight movement of Democrats, these are the types of numbers that I think Republicans have to be pleased with.
Well, and I think at a bigger scope here, one has to ask the question, do you believe these numbers, even when they show some kind of a positive edge for President Trump? I don't believe them because I don't know anybody. If I asked them, give me one example of something that happened in the last administration that was better than what's currently happening? Tell me one thing that the Democrats, the last time they were in charge, tell me one thing that they did that benefited America. Because you can't. Because it's not even close. And this isn't me sycophant, Wendy talking about this. This is me saying, that it's true. So everybody's like, well, typically the party in power loses the midterm, so we're going to do whatever we can to cheat for the midterms. I hope not. I hope that's not what the Democrats are trying to do. But in what world would anybody paying attention to what's going on right now? President Trump says Iran's going to make the deal. He says that Lebanon and Israel are going to talk, right? He says all of this stuff, the stock market goes up 1,000 points. The cost of crude oil drops. And now you've got traffic moving through the Persian Gulf. God, I hate this guy. What are the Democrats going to complain about? What's left, honestly? What is left for them to harp on? I don't know what it is. What, the 11th scientist to be murdered or be missing? Yeah, you hear about that? 11 now. That's coming up later in the program.
Amazing.
Trump is about to drop the binder, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. You dialed into the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and click the Rumble button here and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio.
Wendy Bell Radio program.
Always such great stuff. Always such great stuff. This is the video I shared with you. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and got some nice chats here. Let me go ahead and copy this live chat. All right, make sure I got it all here. Close that out. Slide down here and paste that into a comment so that the live chats will be a permanent part of this video. Great information, folks. And Wendy Bell Radio video and the Dan Bongino Show video will be in my Daily News Wrap-Up playlist, so you can watch that there. These videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer. I've got the links to the videos in the description box as well as the links to the producer's channel if you want to go check them out. These videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted here on Murtech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. The kind of information that you're not going to get from the mainstream media. Now, the link is in the description box. It's a free site. You can come here and get your news updates. You don't have to surf the internet. I do that for you. Now, I'd like to share all this information with you, but unfortunately, I just don't have the time to do so. And that's why I've put together my Murtech Daily News Wrap-Up playlist. And as I said, here's the Wendy Bell Radio video that I shared with you. And the Dan Bongino, those are at the top of the list. It says I have 30 videos here, about 11 hours worth of great information. The Rubin Report, I got 2 of those. Great information from him. News for Reasonable People, more McWattersaffect, Devory Darkins, Black Conservative Perspective, Awaken with JP, his weekly news update. We Lie to You News. I thought I'd throw that in there for you because it's, kind of humorous. I might move that up on the list. Anthony Brian Logan, More American Center for Law and Justice. Information Trump announces, let me back that up here. Trump announces U.S. blockade to continue amid Iran retreat. Okay. He did it. It's over. From Benny Johnson. X22 report. Tons of great information in here, folks. But go ahead and take a break right now. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer or even a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes so I could get this set up in Rumble Studio, and we'll take it from there. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.